Would you like to become a biblical scholar? Do you feel unsure about where to begin or which sources to use? Does the language used by biblical scholars seem too complex for you? At times, scholarly writing is aimed at specialists, and these can make you feel as though you might miss the opportunity to study a biblical text in depth. If you feel this way, well, you are in the right place. I'm here to help you. In this video, I want to share with you the key sources that you should use to begin your journey into biblical research. In this slide, you can see different sources that are used by biblical scholars. NA is the abbreviation for Nestle Aland. Instead, UBS stands for the United Bible Societies. At the time of recording this video, that is April 2026, the most recent editions are NA 28, that is Nestle Aland 28th edition, and UBS 6, that is UBS 6th edition. These are two standard and widely used editions for anyone who engages in serious biblical scholarship. And then we have the Houghton's textual commentary on the Greek New Testament, which was published in 2025. This is an excellent resource and should be used alongside the UBS Greek New Testament. Later in this video, I will show you a picture from a page of this textual commentary, and you will see why this book is very useful. However, in the course of my research, I have identified some problematic issues in the transition from UBS 5 to UBS 6. One might ask why this is the case, given that UBS 6 is the more recent edition. I would invite you to inspect footnote 40 of Article 2, which is Appendix 2 of my book entitled An Introduction to the Letter to the Romans. Using Romans 7 as a case study, I argue that in the revision from UBS 5 to UBS 6, some important textual variants were unfortunately omitted. While my analysis is limited to Romans 7, it raises the possibility that similar issues may occur in other biblical passages. For this reason, I consider UBS 5 in this respect more reliable than UBS 6. And I will therefore refer to NA 28 and UBS 5 in what follows in this video. As of today, April 2026, the new edition of Nestle Aland has not yet been published, so I'm not in a position to comment NA 29 because it's not available. So let's start to analyze NA 28 and UBS 5. Both these books are critical editions of the Greek New Testament, and scholars use them regularly to study textual variants across biblical manuscripts. That means that biblical scholars use these two books to see if there are changes in the biblical text across different ancient biblical manuscripts. Both editions provide a reconstructed Greek text of the New Testament based on the evidence from hundreds of manuscripts. These two books are essential for textual criticism. That is the work that is used to determine what the original text most likely said. These variants are important also when studying the transmission of the New Testament through history, and also for comparing Greek sources with early translations, such as Latin, Syriac, Coptic translations. And then we have the Step Bible, which is a free internet source that also enables to find the text variants. Therefore, Step Bible, NA 28 and UBS 5 can be used for the same purpose, that is checking textual variations in biblical manuscripts. Step Bible can be accessed at www.stepbible.org. There you can access for free the Greek New Testament manuscript apparatus. This apparatus is based on textual evidence from UBS and also from NA. But please remember that NA 28 and UBS 5 are definitely more up-to-date and precise than Step Bible. Later in this video, I will show you how to use Step Bible. And then we have the database at the Institute for New Testament Textual Research. I will also put the web page of this database in the description of this video. So this database will allow you to inspect most of the biblical manuscripts. These have been digitalized, and for many of them, they even carried out some decoding of the Greek words, so you can actually read the text in Greek in the original manuscript. From this point of view, you might also find useful this website at the University of Birmingham. I put the link also in the description of this video. This website contains the database of transcribed manuscripts, which contain different Pauline letters. If you visit this link, you will also see there some very useful links for studying other biblical texts. And then we have the Biblindex database, which is a digital and bibliographical tool that is designed for scholars of patristics and for biblical studies. It's freely accessible. Its main purpose is to index references to biblical passages in patristic texts. Essentially, it helps you to find where the church fathers and other early Christian authors quoted, cited, or alluded to specific biblical texts. This is a great tool because it allows you to see how the fathers of the church cited or alluded to a specific biblical text. In this way, you can discover what were the words that were written in their biblical manuscripts. I think this is an amazing tool since you can retrieve all patristic references for a specific biblical text. However, if you want to read the original text written by the father of the church, which comments or alluded to the specific biblical text that you search, you will need to retrieve such writing. Biblindex doesn't give you the full texts from the fathers of the church that refer implicitly or explicitly to the specific biblical passage which you are analyzing. However, it gives you the reference of the patristic writing, and then through another internet search or with the help of a librarian, you will be able to obtain the original writing of the father of the church that you want to read. I was very lucky that the person who works at Biblindex was able to send me a scan of the patristic writing that I wanted to read. And the second website that gives some quotations from fathers of the church that refer implicitly or explicitly to a specific biblical passage is this website from clerus.org. Let's make an example. So we click here, we can see Romans 7, then I click this here, and you can see here on the left all the sources which cite specific passages of Romans 7. So let's say I'm interested in this one by Gregory Nazianzus. So I click here, and then I see this massive text. So somewhere there, Gregory is referring to Romans 7. So let's search Romans 7. Here we go. So in this text, at some point, is referring to Romans 7. Here we go. Can you see this number here? This is where Gregory of Nazianzus is speaking of this specific passage within Romans 7 in his commentary. And then you can read it and study as I did in my appendices. However, it's important to note that Clerus.org does not give all the references or all the writings of the fathers of the church that commented or alluded to a specific biblical passage. If you want to see all the writings of all the fathers of the church for a specific biblical passage, you should use Biblindex. That is much more complete than Clerus.org. And then we have the Vetus Latina database, which is a critical scholarly resource for the study of the old Latin translations of the Bible. For example, the biblical texts in Latin that predate Jerome's Vulgate. The Vetus Latina database collects and catalogs the entire known manuscript evidence of Old Latin biblical texts. It covers both fragmentary and complete biblical books, mostly from the 2nd to the 4th centuries AD. It includes not just the text, but variants, manuscript witnesses, and also cross-references. To access the Vetus Latina database is not free. This has a cost, but I was able to access a trial version at my library at my university. So if you are a student or part of the staff of a university, you should really ask your librarian, and they might give you access to this database so that you can test it and carry out some searches. Of course, in addition to these sources that you see in this slide, you may also need to carry out further bibliographical research, and every library, especially the libraries at the university, have some librarians that can assist you to carry out bibliographical searches. However, I have to say that the sources that you see in this slide are excellent starting points for your journey into biblical research. If you want to learn more about how to use these resources that you see in this slide in order to carry out biblical research, I invite you to read appendices 1, 2, and 3 of my book entitled An Introduction to the Letter to the Romans. See link in the description of this video on how to get my book in Amazon. In these 3 appendices, I have used all these resources that you see in this slide in order to carry out some research on a specific biblical text. In my case, for my 3 appendices, I chose to study Romans 7, 7 to 25. But of course, you can use the same approach with other biblical texts. If you read my appendices and inspect the sources that I'm presenting you in this video, you will learn the procedure that I have used. At this point, you may feel discouraged because you don't speak Greek. Well, don't be discouraged. I created a video entitled How to Read a Biblical Text in its Original Language Without Knowing Greek. I now want to show you how to use STEPBIBLE in order to access all the textual variations of ancient biblical manuscripts for a specific biblical passage. As a case study, I will use the text of Romans 7:25. Please access the link in the description of this video to open this web page, which shows all the text variants for Romans 7. I chose Romans 7, but as you can see here, you can choose also other biblical texts. As an example, let's consider Romans 7:25. So this is Romans 7. You scroll down and you will see Romans 7:25. Don't get scared. All of these are the textual variations for Romans 7:25. So all these short abbreviations that you see here are biblical manuscripts. In the description of this video, I put several links that will help you to understand what these abbreviations mean. In this slide, I also put some important biblical manuscripts, and you can see in the first column the name, then the siglum, the letter that is used to represent this biblical manuscript, and then the Gregory Alland numbering, and also the dating of these biblical manuscripts and the type and notes on these specific biblical manuscripts. There are other abbreviations, and imagine you have Codex Sinaiticus, which is 01. If there is a star as a superscript, like a star, can you see that star? That is the version which was written by the first scribe. Instead, if you see 01 with a superscript, a small little number 1 and 2, etc., it means that these are later corrections. So first hand, second hand, and so on. So if you follow the abbreviations that I gave you, also in the links that I put in the description of this video, we are ready to analyze the STEPBIBLE textual apparatus for Romans 7:25. I will now explain you the abbreviation so that you can understand what each part means. Essentially here, STEPBIBLE is showing all the different Greek textual readings of that specific verse. There are different manuscripts, translations, church fathers, critical editions, and each line lists a variant reading and the evidence that supports it. Here we read the first variant reading, charis to theo. Charis to theo means thanks to God. It is present in the biblical manuscript B, which, as we have seen in the previous slide, means Codex Vaticanus, and then is present in other sources, such as the Coptic Saitic version. Moreover, different fathers of the Church, namely Methodius, Origen, Epiphanius, and Jerome, are citing this reading, and Jerome is citing this reading 1 out of 6 times. And then we have different modern editions or printed editions which are supporting this reading. Let's move to the next reading, to the next textual variation, I charis to theo, which translates as the grace of God. This is present in the biblical manuscript D, which is Codex BZ, see previous slide, and also in different Old Latin manuscripts. All these manuscripts that start with IT are Old Latin manuscripts, and if you want to know exactly the name, please see the links in the description of this video for the abbreviations. Then we have the VG, that is the Latin Vulgate, and also in this case, different fathers of the Church cite this reading. And you can read the names there. As you can see, these fathers of the Church are different than the fathers of the Church we encountered for the first textual variant. However, there is one exception. And when you compare the first text variant with the second text variant, you can see that Jerome used both expressions. However, he used the first one 1 out of 6 times. Instead, he used the second one 4 out of 6 times. Let's now move to the third textual variation. Charis de to theo, but thanks to God. There is but. So we can see here there is an X. That is not an X. We should pronounce that as Aleph. And then there is upper script 1. So Aleph 1. If you remember from the previous slide, when there is an uppercase 1, it means a correction. So is the first correction. And then we have the C2, which is Codex Ephraimi Rescriptus. 2 means that is a second correction. And then we have that C, which refers to the Codex Athos Lavriensis. And then all those numbers, 33, 81, 88, etc., those are biblical manuscripts known as minuscule Greek manuscripts. If you want more information, you need to access my links with the abbreviations. And then also from internet searches, you will know exactly what these are, and so on for other manuscripts. Cop-Bo refers to the Coptic Boahiric version, and then we have the Armenian version, Georgian version, first correction. And also in this case, we have different fathers of the church that cite this reading. Claudius, Ephraim, Didymus, Cyril, John Damascus. Didymus cited this reading 1 out of 3 times. Then we have WH there, which means that the Westcott Hort Critical Edition includes the particle the. This is also present in the Novum Testamento Greci, according to Nestor Aland. Let's now move to the fourth textual variation. I charis Kyrion, the grace of the Lord. This is present in the biblical manuscript F and G. We have seen in the previous slide that F is Codicis Augiensis and G is Codicis Boernianus. And then we have ITF and ITG that are Old Latin manuscripts. Let's now move to the fifth textual variant, and this is Eucharisto to Theo, I give thanks to God. So in this case, you see the X, which is Aleph, with the little star as a superscript. That is the original hand of the Codex Sinaiticus. We have seen this before. When there is star, it means you're referring to the original hand. This is also present in the codices A, K, L, and P. Please see previous slide to know all the abbreviations. And then is present in many minuscule Greek manuscripts, 681, 326, 2495, etc. This means that this belongs to the Byzantine text tradition. Lect is lectionary. And then Syr is the Syriac Peshitta for P and Harklean for H. Goth is the Gothic translation. Then we have the Georgian version, Slavic translation, and also different fathers of the church and early writers cite this reading. And we now move to the last textual variant, the sixth textual variant, which is Charis to Kyrio Pneumon Iesu Christou, which translates as thanks to our Lord Jesus Christ. This reading is cited by the Latin Irenaeus 1 out of 3 times, and this reading is also present in Priscillian. If you are struggling with Greek when trying to understand these textual variants, and if my previous video on reading a biblical text in its original language without knowing Greek is not enough, then I have a helpful tip for you. Go to STEPBIBLE and choose the biblical passage that you want to study, and then copy the text containing all the textual variants. Then go in ChatGPT and write, can you explain me what the following means in relation to Romans 7:25 in STEPBIBLE and give me also the meaning of the abbreviations and then column, and then paste there the text that you just copied from STEPBIBLE. Hit enter and you will see that ChatGPT will give you all the English translations for the different Greek expressions that I just read to you. So in this way, you will learn the translations of the different textual variants. ChatGPT will also give you the meaning of the abbreviations, but always refer to the table of abbreviations that I put in the link in the description of this video. Please do that because sometimes AI tools can make mistakes. Moreover, for some biblical verses, unfortunately not for all, but for many, you have the possibility to click here, as you can see in STEPBIBLE, and then this window will appear. This is extremely useful to understand the biblical text and its variations, since this translates the Greek expressions into English. And now I also want to show you the usefulness of Houghton's textual commentary on the Greek New Testament. This book was published in 2025, and in this slide you can see the picture from UBS 6. This is from page 421 on the left, and this is in relation to Romans 7:25. And then on the right, you can see the picture from Houghton's textual commentary in relation to this biblical verse. And this is from page 392 of this book. As you can see, the explanation of the textual variants in Romans 7:25 in the textual commentary of UBS 6 is very detailed. And as you can see, this book even provides the English translations of the different Greek textual variants. So I have to say that this commentary is a very useful resource for biblical scholars. And then you can use the database at the Institute for New Testament Textual Research to inspect and visualize the biblical manuscripts in their digitalized forms. For example, in this slide, you can see here two pictures that I took when I was using this database. In my case, I was interested to study Romans 7:25, and I searched the oldest biblical manuscripts which contain this biblical verse. To my knowledge, these two manuscripts that you see here in the slide are the oldest manuscripts containing the text of Romans 7:25. Both of them are dated from the 4th century AD. The manuscript shown in the picture on the top of the slide is Codex Vaticanus. This is known as B in STEPBIBLE and is also known with the number 03 in the Gregory Allen numbering system. And there you can see that it has the word charis. You can see this word in the green box, and it makes sense with what we saw earlier. Instead, the picture on the bottom of the slide shows the biblical manuscript known as Codex Sinaiticus. This is known as Aleph, and we saw this symbol in STEPBIBLE earlier. This manuscript is also known as 01 in the Gregory Allen numbering system. The original writing of this manuscript contains the expression Eucharisto, and this word is shown in the green box. So that is the original expression. At some point, this manuscript was amended, and you can see a second hand. Somebody at some point wrote Charis the, and this is shown in the red circle. This is the first corrected version of the manuscript Aleph. and this is shown as Aleph 1 in Step Bible. I invite you to read Appendix 1 of my book entitled An Introduction to the Letter to the Romans, because there I discussed this topic. In such appendix, in fact, I discussed the fact that St. Augustine had a biblical manuscript in Latin which contained, in relation to Romans 7:25a, a Latin expression that, if you retro-translate it into Greek, would be I charis to Theo, the grace of God. Why is this important? To understand why this is important, please read this quotation from Appendix 1 of my book. In particular, in the article in Appendix 1 of my book, I have argued that as a result of these textual variants in relation to Romans 7:25a, Augustine identifies the grace of God as the answer to the question that expresses the Pauline plight in Romans 7:24. The literal translation in English of the Vulgate that contains a text in Latin which is similar to the text present in the biblical manuscript used by St. Augustine shows for Romans 7:24 to 25a the following text.
Unhappy man that I am, who shall deliver me from the body of this death? The grace of God, by Jesus Christ our Lord.
This is different than the usual English translation of this biblical text.
Wretched man that I am, who will rescue me from this body of death? Thanks be to God through Jesus Christ our Lord.
This is because in the most authentic biblical manuscript, Romans 7:25a contains the expression charis to Theo, not I charis to Theo. Therefore, the interpretation that St. Augustine gives is different than the reading that, for example, St. Gregory Nazianzus gives. And Gregory Nazianzus had a Greek manuscript which did not contain the expression I charis to Theo. Please read my article where I have argued this very clearly. So I want to show you very quickly how to carry out a search in the database at the Institute for the New Testament Textual Research at the University of Munster. So this is what you see once you log in. You can click this collation button on the left side and this window will appear. In my case, it remembers my previous search. I did a search a few minutes ago on Romans 7:25. It still remembers that, but you can change. As you can see, you can click here and you can change from Romans 7 to any biblical text you want. So you will load the witnesses and this is what will appear. This is the NA28 reading. There are other readings, the 01 first and you can click and see the transcription there. And if you click there, you will actually see the first correction. Then you can click ECM, and this will also give you an apparatus similar to STEPBIBLE. So again, you need to write Romans 7:25 in my case, or whatever passage you want to put. You click there and this will appear. This is the apparatus within ECM. Similar reasoning of what I explained you before. It's even telling you it's not present in certain papyrus. Then you can click anti-conjectures. Again, type Romans 7:25, this is my example, and you will see all the conjectures. Just very few words to say what conjectures are. In the history of biblical scholarship, many scholars have proposed some conjectures. For example, omission, transposition, combination, as you can see. And here you can see all the variants that they suggested and how to get these varieties. For example, John Cochrane O'Neill has published something in 1975, and I got that book and I commented it extensively in my appendices. And then let's carry out a search of the manuscripts, search in the manuscript catalog. So you can browse here the type of manuscript you want, or you can write the manuscript you want to search. In my case, 01. This is what will appear. Here on the right, you will see all the information about this particular manuscript, and there is a lot in there. As you can see, you can study that if you are interested, and then if you click there, you will see some more information about this manuscript, and then if you click that, this window will appear, and this is what will help you to visualize the manuscript, the digitalized manuscript. So you need to search, in this case, the biblical text you want. In my case is Romans 7, so I search Ctrl F Rom, and this will appear. I choose the passage within Romans 7, and as you can see, this window will appear containing the digitalized biblical manuscript. And can you see there Eucharisto to Theo that I discussed earlier? And there on the right, you can see the text in Greek, which has been transcribed and it's available for you to inspect while you study the digitalized manuscript. And the very last suggestions that I want to give you if you want to start your journey to biblical scholarship are another book and two other websites. The book I recommend you is entitled The Text of the New Testament, an introduction to the critical editions and to the theory and practice of modern textual criticism. This book is quite old. It's from 1995, but I think it's still a very good book. I could not find something similar out there, especially in relation to the information in the appendices of this book. The appendices of this book are fantastic. I took these pictures from the appendix of this book. As you can see, these pictures give you important papyrus and uncial manuscripts that contain or don't contain or contain in part a specific chapter within a specific book of the Bible. What you can see here in the slide is for the letter to the Romans, but in the appendix of this book, you can see the same information for all the books of the New Testament. Please keep in mind that there could be errors here. For example, I've discovered that it is not true that Romans 7 is present in a papyrus. And I have explained this in my article, so you always need to check the information later on. But nevertheless, it's a very good starting point. And then a website which provides you a student's guide to New Testament textual variants. I put the link in the description of this video. I have to say this is an excellent tool if you want to start your journey in biblical scholarship. The very last website that I want to share with you is this one. See the link there. I also put it in the description. This is an excellent website if you want to study those biblical passages within the New Testament that refer to some passages from the Old Testament. The first thing to do is when you open this website is to click all these little buttons. So tick all of them, and then you choose New Testament, book, let's say again Romans, and then in my case I choose Romans 1:17. You have a lot of information. You have information on the different readings of this biblical passage, the translation in English, the Vulgate, the Peshitta, and the Byzantine version. You can have all the text there. And also this website points to the information within the Septuagint and the equivalent Hebrew expression, in this case from the prophet Habakkuk. And you can also read there the Hebrew text. If you want to know how to pronounce this Hebrew text, please see my other video. As you know, the authors of the books of the New Testament quoted the passages from the Old Testament using the Greek text from the Septuagint. And in this picture, you can see another quick way to obtain the text from the Septuagint for an Old Testament passage. So just go to BibleHub.com, choose the passage from the Old Testament, for example, in this case, Habakkuk 2:4, and then click LXX. This will give you the Greek text from the Septuagint for this biblical passage. I hope you enjoyed this video and that it motivated you in order to start your journey to become a biblical scholar.